Okay, we are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a work session. And this will be, discussion topics will be the harbor rate study will be the primary topic. Then if we have time, it'll be harbor parking fees and harbor capital improvement needs. And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And then if staff wants to go ahead and start.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn the floor over to our harbor master and our harbor master assistant who compiled the harbor rate study that we're reviewing today. Feel free to take it away.
So were you going to have the slides on your computer?
Oh, yes. That may be a delay. I apologize. I forgot that I was doing that. Technical difficulties here. All right, and I'm going to share my screen.
You're going to be on the laydown.
It is in the regular packet.
The regular.
There on page 3. Okay. All right, Radsy, ready when you are.
Okay, go on to the next slide. So you should have all seen this before. Rachel's presented it a number of times. The Harbor Special Revenue Fund has been negative. There's a lot of red here. The actual values don't matter much. And so Rachel asked Layla and me to figure out what's going on and present some stuff. We want to all fix this. And regardless of what happens here, we need to have a discussion about it. So that's part of what we're doing today. Slide.
And then Radsy, just to point out, since 2014, the harbor has been operating at a deficit, and the deficit remains as of the current fiscal year, which is what the red is denoting.
So what we wanted to do was review the budget trends and the audit trends, try and figure out why, and try and figure out some of the things that we might be able to do about it. We did not focus primarily on the maintenance and repair fund or grant funding, although we did pay some attention to them. So one of the first things we did was to go through and figure out the year-over-year change in the fund. The fund is something that's cumulative over years, whereas if we have a year or 2 years of bad revenue or expenses exceeding revenue, then that's a different matter. So here we show both the figures you saw before, which is the fund balance and the change in the fund balance. You see there are a couple of significant changes on 2017 and 2020. Even though the fund balance is red, we did have an operational surplus. Another thing to note was, as Rachel said earlier, the fund balance went negative in 2014, but the actual operating deficit started a year earlier, where the first year was covered by the fact that the balance was enough to make up for it. So the question is why? And there's 3 major factors that we came up with, and we'll discuss each of them. Next slide. So the first one, basically, expenses exceeded revenue. So when this happens, the revenue from the difference is made up by pulling money out of the fund. If we had made surplus, then the surplus would have gone into the fund. As I just said a moment ago, the deficit spending started in 2013, but in 2014, the fund balance became negative at $19,706. And we haven't had a couple of years of surpluses, but they haven't been enough or with enough money to replenish the fund. An odd thing, in 4 of the past 7 years, we had a deficit actually built into the budget. An odd thing. So one of the slides on that should be the first slide in your laydown. Shows what we just saw a moment ago with the fund balance and the year-over-year change. Then we went through and we checked out the audit and budget documents, and we used those to try and figure the same operational change value. And we found that they didn't match quite as much as we would have liked. The early values we didn't worry too much about. Later values we were more concerned about.
Can you guys quickly, there's one question on best available revenue. That's taking, what is that taking
So
into account?
if the audit if the audit was available for that year, then we used the audit value. If the audit was not available, then we used the budget value or whatever we could find.
Okay. Okay.
And having Cassell in there for a couple of years didn't make things easy either.
Gotcha.
Okay, onward to back to the regular presentation. So we looked at the audit results and tried to find, is there any one place that's causing the problem? And the answer is no. The problem is spread throughout a bunch of things. In this particular slide from 2014, we show that the biggest problem is a 36K revenue under budget. Other than that, it's spread throughout. There's no single smoking gun. So it's not just a matter of one thing or another. And most of the things down on the left side are things the harbor actually doesn't even have control over. So I mentioned earlier, 4 of the last 7 years, the budget included a deficit. And this shows the 4 years, the remaining years, the budget was balanced. Again, this is not a smoking gun. Of the total budget deficit, it covers about 1/3 of our current fund deficit. So it's also not, we can't just say this will fix it. Here's another slide that you've seen a different variation of from Rachel a few times. So the blue bars are revenue, the green bars are expenses, and the black line is fund balance. In 10 and 11, the revenues exceeded expenses and the fund balance went up. But pretty much since then, with a couple of exceptions, the fund balance has been going down. We need to do something about that. One of the odd things that we found in looking through things was that in the audits, because there's a requirement that the budget be balanced, the audits called for, starting in 2015, they called for a transfer to happen from the general fund to the harbor fund. So that means that the harbor didn't make enough revenue to pay expenses, and we took money from the harbor fund, but essentially the general fund paid the bills. We more or less we took a loan from the general fund. And general fund shouldn't be used for that. The harbor should be self-sustaining. You want to add anything to this one, Rachel?
Thank you, Radzi. So in the chart that we just saw a couple slides ago, this is kind of showing how we keep overspending and not making enough to cover what we're spending on the bar chart. You know, we would want to see something like FY 2010 or FY 2011. That would be ideal, where revenues are exceeding expenses, maybe not that much, but as you see in 2011, but it's the reverse trend where we start to see expenses, it becomes the norm where expenses are exceeding revenue. And so the audit report, I think the first time we saw it mentioned was 2015, Radzi?
That's correct.
The audit stated that in order to offset the fact that we're overspending in the harbor, we're going to take money from the general fund to balance the harbor. And so essentially non-users of the harbor would be subsidizing its operations. And the harbor, like water and sewer, they're supposed to be like enterprise funds because they charge users fees to be in there. It should be self-sufficient. And our general fund is already responsible for so many other expenses that would be an unsustainable source of revenue if you're counting on the general fund, where the main revenues are property tax and sales tax, to be supporting the harbor.
Cool.
Thank you.
So next slide. Essentially, this is another one. Harbor use fees did not cover expenses, kind of the same as operating expenses exceeded revenues. But what we're trying to point out here is that in this, we're focused on the usage fees. And for part of our study was to look at other harbors. So we did look at other harbors, and I'm going to get a little bit ahead of the slide presentations here and say that our overall, our fees are reasonable, but that they're very, very, very heavily unbalanced. And so each individual item is not quite reasonable. So next slide. So a little bit of a digression here. We had for the current fiscal year, we have a 10% increase, but that is applied to everything, or then it was across the board, so it applied to everything. But one thing that's very, very important for the to-date revenue is that annuals aren't billed until March. So we don't start seeing revenue for annuals until March or April. Currently, for the last 2 years, we've been in the black. And our expenses are quite low, which we'll discuss in a moment. I said a moment ago, rates are fair, but we need to be to rebalance them. Essentially, we need a one-time change to make the rates more consistent with other harbors. And at this point, I'd like to briefly go to the laydown. And page 5. Yeah, this one. So this one shows our data. You can see it in your laydown. The important thing is what's in the circle. Our daily rates are 40% higher than the average of the harbors that we reviewed. And our monthly, 6-month, and annual rates are between 30 and 45% lower than the other harbors that we reviewed. Slide. So this shows the same amount. We took the average, the rightmost figure of each of these four charts is the average that we showed on the last, or that showed on that last slide that we showed. And then the left of that is the Soldovia rates over time. And as you can see, the daily rate has been higher than the 2021 average since before 2016. Presumably other harbors have also increased their rates since then. So it's not something that we've been correcting. And the other three rates are quite a bit higher than the average, or than the other averages are quite a bit higher than Soldovia. So the next slide is probably the most important one. This slide shows the comparison of daily rates versus daily users. The two different groups of daily users are the people that spend the night and the people that don't. On the left, we show daily rate rises in red, or the daily rate in red, compared to the number of boats that come in and then leave in the evening before the day is out. And on the right, we see that the boats, or the daily rate compared to the boats that actually spend the night. In 2017, we had a 17% increase. Remember, the fiscal year starts in the middle of the summer. So that 17% increase started in the middle of the summer. And then the next year, we started seeing the overnight users reduce quite a lot, drastically. I alluded to this slide a little bit ago. Our annual rates are a huge percentage of our moorage revenue, essentially 3/4, more or less. And okay. Again, earlier I said our expenses are very low. A relevant comparison is against Homer. They're roughly 5 times our size, and they have a budget roughly 15 times what the harbor budget here is. So their per slip budget is roughly 3 times what ours is. Our expenses are very, very low. So now that's more or less the analysis part. So what at this point, what do we need? Do we need to increase revenue? Absolutely. We need to rebalance the rates, and we need to find other sources of revenue. The rebalancing goal isn't really to increase revenue for that, but to make it fairer, try and convince people to spend the night here overnight rather than going away again, and then charge our local users and the long-term renters a rate that's a little bit closer to what other harbors are charging. We need to increase the maintenance expenses. Some counselors have commented in the past about deck boards down on the floats that need to be replaced and other things. We do need more maintenance. We need to spend more money in order to do it. And we have a fund for unexpected expenses, and we need to make annual deposits to that every year, regardless of whether we use it. But do we need to decrease expenses? No, we don't. We actually need to spend more on maintenance, which may mean that we need to increase expenses. So we came up with 3 different proposals: moorage fees changes to rebalance the fees, port fee and administration fee. The Mortgage fee, we don't advise an overall increase, but we do need to rebalance it. This is a one-time thing. It's not intended to happen every year.
So with Radzi, quick question then with the if we get this rebalanced, then is the idea that in future, any future increases, whether or not we have I know there was discussion about or some a little bit of mention of future increases and being annual based on cost of living, et cetera, then it would be a percentage then evenly across the board.
That
And
is what we
Once we get the daily versus the annual and the 6 month and or quarterly, all balanced back in proportion to each
that's
other.
what we envision. So
Okay.
I heard a figure today of inflation being 7.5%. And so if we wanted next year, if that were the rate, and we wanted to make up for inflation but not increase anything, we would increase rates by 7.5%.
Gotcha.
And it would be across the board, every single thing. Okay. And I want to go on to the next slide because that has the actual recommendations that we're making. So increase the current daily rate is $1.50. We want to decrease that by 23% down to $1.15. This is per foot per night. The monthly is currently $8.30. We want to increase that to $9.20, which is almost an 11% increase. The 6 month, we want to increase by about 15% from 22 to 25, a little over 25. And the annuals increase about 10% from 28.50 to 31.50. And on the bottom line, you can see all of these rates are still we still have the same situation where the average is for dailies is significantly less than our daily, and the average for the others is still more than ours.
So that bottom row then compared to FY21 harbor average, if we move over to the annual, if we're proposing to go from 28.50 to 31.50, even though it's a 10% increase, I mean, the difference, the other harbors, the average on the other harbors is 49.81.
That's correct.
So we're still
significantly
lower.
Significantly less than
Yeah.
substantially, yes. Yes. We're not trying to make up and put our harbor at the rate that the average is.
Correct.
Next slide. So we have currently in our inventory, our fee inventory, a port fee. That's a fee that's charged to, you want to tell what the fee is, Layla, or maybe what?
I can talk. Oh, but it can't go. Okay, so the port fee is something that we've had this whole time. It is the only fee in the fee schedule that has not changed for the last 13 years.
So actually, Rachel, go ahead and put to the next slide. Go ahead, Layla.
Currently, we charge $1 per head for the port fee. This last summer, our count was 12,472. So we have a couple scenarios of increases to that. If we keep it the same, which is highlighted in yellow, or if we add an increase 50%, then what we're looking at of our changes. I think it's something that we need to do. Currently, Seward is charging $3.50 per head, where Sylvania is at $1.
And like with the mortgage fees, Seward is higher than what we're recommending. Well, the highest value that we're recommending here.
Yes.
So we're not trying to be the highest, charge the highest fees of harbors. We are actually the other way around.
We don't even want to make it too steep. We just want to make it where it kind of pays for a lot of the stuff that they actually use, and the benefits those users. We can make positive changes.
So a couple of notes on this slide. The average annual revenue, we took the average from 2009 to 2021 and used that as a basis. So the average over those years was 7,963. But as you can see, if you look at the data, there's some years that are substantially less than that. And so we included the 2021 average for comparison. In later slides, later stuff we're going to do, we are going to deal with the 23,888 as our expected value, but it could be higher than that.
Real quick on the port fee, then the Homer does not have a port fee, correct? Homer does not have a port fee. On the, that is primarily made up of people landing on the dock, inbound passengers on commercial vessels. Commercial pass. So so if there was a commercial fishing boat that stopped, or let's just say if there's a charter fishing boat that stopped in for lunch, how is that? Is that
Right
they're here
now,
for 4 hours? Are they getting hit or no?
Not the charter boats.
Okay.
Only the passenger boats.
Only the passenger vessels.
Yes.
Okay. So primarily the Rainbow, Discovery, and Catchmack Voyager
And Mako's water taxi.
and Mako's or any other water taxi that's coming directly into the city.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The next one we wanted to deal with was the administration fee. So right now, the harbor is actually paying administration fees to the general fund in the range of $15,000 a year. And we do not yet have an administration fund fee for our customers to pass that expense on. We're proposing to create one. In some ways, the value of the administration fee is less important than the fact that we create it. But we've presented three different options here: a low end, middle end, and high end. Scenario 1, 2, and 3, respectively. This, like would be a transaction type fee. So if a daily comes in and he says he wants to spend one night, then we'll charge him a transaction or an administration fee for that one night. If he comes in the next day, we charge it to him again. But if he came in the first day and said he wanted two, we'd only charge it once. So the fee is administered on a per transaction basis. And again, as you can see, looking at the values, the fiscal year 2022 value that Harbor pays into general fund is $15,000, and none of the fees that we're charging come up to that. As I said, the primary thing here is to create an administration fee. Okay, so we've gone through the recommendations. We've talked a little bit about what the different causes and effects were. In the future, we don't want this to happen again. So we need to do a bunch of things. We need to do rate comparisons, preferably on an annual basis. We need to do review of expenses and revenue. And every year we need to deposit money into the major maintenance and repair fund. Current balance of that fund is $27,000. And it's good policy just to put money in every year, regardless of whether we actually draw anything out. Lily, you want to talk about a couple of things that we've used that fund for in the past?
We use that fund for paying for the alcohol.
I'm sorry, Ms. Harbor Master, could you please turn your mic so people on Zoom can hear you?
We use that fund to buy a new outboard for the harbor skiff for dumping the grease house. One year, we've also used that for replacement of the canvas of the ramp after the big windstorm. There's a few other things we used it to off the top of my head. Yeah, let's just talk about those two for right now. They were both over 5,000. And they were both things that we needed like today, and so that's where that fund came in handy. That fund isn't limited to just like that stuff. I mean, we could use it for whatever we need. And we need it now.
Okay, and we do need to invest in grant opportunities. That, I'm not sure exactly what form that'll take. I believe that we are already doing some work with grants that we haven't done in the past few years. But I don't know enough to talk about those. And we need to rebalance the harbor's fees and add the new one and update the ones that we've got. We can do a little bit of an exercise now, if you'd like.
Mayor Campbell. Yep, I have one quick question. Maybe I missed it. Is there an administration fee charged at all now? Is there any fee being charged at all?
We do not charge any
That's what I thought. Okay.
administration fee at this time.
Thank you.
So if there are questions, now would be a good time to ask them. Otherwise, we do have a little exercise which you can sort of preview on slide 7 of the laydown.
Okay, I do have a couple more. Let's see here. So slide 7 of the laydown.
Yeah.
Let's see. Which one is the laydown? That's the
If I
laydown.
may, Mayor, if I could ask a question about this administrative fee, a little clarification.
Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, if you could clarify who pays it and how that would happen, and if you could elaborate on that, Razzie, about what administrative fee you're talking about.
So right now, the harbor pays a lump sum administration fee to the general fund.
Correct.
And what we're asking for is for harbor users to pay an administrative fee to, essentially, we're trying to pass that fee on to the users. So we would apply the fee for every transaction. For a daily, a one night, we would apply a fee for the one night, specific to one night stay. For a monthly, we would apply the fee for a 1 month stay, and so on.
So it would be all the mortgages. Anything,
So it would
any transaction that goes through the harbor master, that would have an admin fee added to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh. I was gonna say, so every transaction that goes through the harbor master would have the addition of the admin fee is what we're considering. Is that
It wouldn't just be if it goes through the harbor office. The annuals are billed through the city office.
right?
So those would also be,
But through the harbor fund?
yes.
Yep, okay, okay, thank
And-
you. Yep.
Okay, real quick, there was 2 things that stuck out here. There in 2017, so we had those were the 2 years, the 2 recent years where we had a surplus in our annual operational harbor budget. The 2017 we had 27,000, in 2020 we had 60,000. On the chart though, on 2017 we still had expenses still exceeded revenue. And in 2020, though, it showed the reverse of what we would see, the revenue exceeded the expenses. So how did what happened there in 2017 where we had a surplus, yet on the chart, it showed that the expenses still exceeded the revenue? Am I reading that right? I'm pretty sure I am. Yep. The green showed higher than the revenue. The expenses showed higher than the revenue.
How about slide 3 of the laydown? One more. Nope, other direction.
There we go.
There we go. So this is one of those we don't understand.
Okay.
We see the fund changed year over year with a positive 27,000, but the operational change showed up as a 12,000. The figures that we used in that one that you mentioned was the year-over-year change at I believe 27,000.
Okay, so when you were talking about when you went through and compared how the balances were different there and there were some anomalies and stuff, that was one of them.
That was one of them.
Okay, so then on a better note, then if we go to 2020 and we had where we matched 60 grand to the positive, 60 grand to the positive, our expenses that was one of our lowest years in 10 years almost of expenses. Our revenues were probably somewhat average. Yeah, we had a 60. I mean, I guess most of that probably came down to a big decrease in our expenses that year. That was the first year of COVID, right?
That was COVID, and I sit on my phone for hours at home.
Okay.
It was one of our busiest numbers for actual
Yeah, that.
personal vessels coming in.
Yep.
So we actually had a very high usage year, but we didn't have assistance.
Correct. Okay. So our labor costs were down, even though we were substantially busier that year. Okay. Okay. Yep. No, that makes sense there. Okay. Those are all I had. So you've got an exercise for us here,
Yes. So
page 7 of the laydown.
I can.
I'm sorry, can you guys tell me when you talk about the laydown, what are you talking about?
Laydown packet. There was 2 packets. There was a packet that went out today, your laydown packet in your email this morning.
I know, well, I thought I had them all, but thank you. I got it.
Oops, sorry. Almost pulled this over on you.
So for the exercise, we put the different things into 3 scenarios: scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3, which are low, medium, and high changes. And here we also did a major maintenance fund deposit, which we recommend at 2,500. So here we can choose to see what's going to happen to the fund itself, to the year-end fund balance, and to how long do we expect, if nothing changes, which of course this is future we're talking about, and we know that things will change, but if nothing changes, how long could we expect the fund to be? How long could we expect it to be before the fund becomes positive again? And if you see down at the bottom right, there's a little bit of never there. If we do nothing, the fund will never become positive. The harbor will continue to operate at a deficit, and we don't want that. So let's start with the admin fee. Can we have a little discussion of what people think about it? Which scenario, just in general, what people think about it, and which scenario would be what people prefer, and just other comments. I can put any number in here regardless of the 3 scenarios.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Go ahead, John.
And I don't know if this would be appropriate. I'm pretty new. But in lieu of, I spent quite a bit of time taking some notes today and some ideas about this whole situation. But would it be appropriate maybe for a couple of council members or staff members to work on a possible different type of scenario that might be able to, that we could bring to the council?
Well, that would be definitely not traditional to what, all the harbors do. I'd say
Because some of this,
if you got something, throw it out there just to.
Well, some of this, I'm absolutely, of course, I'm not thrilled with any of it when it comes to tax rates, but it's pretty, the writing's on the wall here. You know what I mean? But I also have some other ideas.
I wouldn't look at it as a tax though. I definitely, I mean,
It's-
there may be a
right.
tax or two, but when
Right.
it comes to user fees, I mean,
Right, just for example, just my quick notes, and I'm not, ultimately, what I'm afraid of is they're reporting, what, 7% inflation.
Yep.
I think when it really washes out here with what's happening in the world, it's probably going to be closer to 15%. And I think we're going to see, if we get our rates too high, we're going to see the same scenario that you folks have presented with the daily rate. We're going to see people use us less. And so I'd like to find other incentives and other ways included with some rate increases to help us see more revenue. Okay. So just some round numbers real quick. And Rachel, I can certainly give you this piece of paper so you don't have to rewrite it all. And you can have it in my chicken scratch and maybe take a copy of it and send it back to me. But like I said, I'm not really for any of the rate increases, but let's just start with the daily rate. I think $1.20 would probably be a good place. The monthly rate. And if correct me, Leila, if I'm correct, these rates are per foot, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the monthly rate, $9.30, the 6-month rate, $28.38. The annual rate, I see that a little bit differently. Now, most of our annual users that have boats sitting in the harbor year round, those are the folks, they're local folks that are actually using that harbor year round, right? But you have a lot of people that pay an annual rate that still pull their boat out of the water, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to see a little different rate for those type of users. In other words, the ones that actually have a boat sitting in the water that live here, maybe could get a little better break than those that are paying the annual rate, but pulling it out seasonally, and they're not spending any money here 6 months out of the year.
I don't know if legally you can even do that.
Right, no, I get it. I'm just
Yep.
throwing it out there.
Yep.
Okay, I get it. I get that. Okay, but I'd like to see the annual boat users pay maybe $32.50 a foot annually. And then the seasonal folks that are paying that annual rate, $42.50. Okay. And like I said, there's a lot of things, a lot of questions that are going to come up here. Okay. Because I'm only halfway through my ideas.
Okay.
But they're still,
Throw an idea at you right now.
yeah.
You live here year round, you do have the option at a 10% discount right now on your annual mortgage if you volunteer for fire and EMS.
No, I get that. I get that. But I'm not interested at 62 years old in being a fireman.
You'd be surprised if you help
But
them.
here's the scenario here and what I meant about the daily rate. You guys in your scenario talk about the folks coming here and using the harbor for 4 hours and then leaving rather than spend the night. Okay, that's a concern for all of us that have businesses here, anybody in Sildovia. If they don't spend the night, they're not paying a hotel fee, they're not buying a meal, they're not buying drinks at the bar or whatever. Okay, so I'd love to see them stay. I think we all would, you know. But anyway, I was just thinking it would be an incentive to locals that have a boat in, and that was my exact concerns is what Jeremiah brought up was, I don't know if that's even legal. You know what I mean? To charge 2 different annual rates. Okay. But anyway, the port fee, $250 a head, and the administration fee, I believe it needs to equal. The administration fee needs to equal whatever the administration fee is that's paid to the general fund. Administration fees are across the board in just about anything we do today. I don't like the fee increases at all. Okay, but then I think we need to find other sources of revenue income. Okay, and whether that be selling assets, grants, whatever, fundraising opportunities. I have a fundraising opportunity that I'd really like to discuss with the city manager and Rachel, maybe at another time. But then we also need to find a way to increase visitors and users. You know, maybe there's some assets that we can get rid of.
John, not to cut you short, but then I want to get to everybody.
I get it.
So I know you got.
Give me one more minute.
Yep, go
and
ahead.
then- And then the other thing that I thought of today, and we've had discussions about the kiosks, but would it be possible to rent them in place as right where they're at, as nightly rentals, Airbnbs, with little cabins? And the reason I think that is because in Michigan, it's called the All Grays County Yacht Club. And they actually have boat slips with little kiosks, much like your kiosk there, that the folks actually rent and live or spend the night in. So that would provide maybe 4 additional beds to the community that we don't have in that summer season, and possibly bring in additional 15,000 in income a year. Anyway, so there's lots of ideas like that. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, and what I meant about maybe some other type of brainstorming, planning session.
Yeah, so you're looking for a hybrid then. So
Yeah.
it makes perfectly good sense.
Okay.
So, okay, who's up next? Harmony, you going? Go for it.
So I just have a quick question that might show my ignorance here. I just was wondering about the annual fee. Like, so if somebody pays the annual fee and then pulls their boat out, do they pay an annual fee and dry dock? Are those separate, or they do get dry dock with their slips?
So if you're an annual in the harbor, you get a discount in the boatyard.
Okay, but you do pay for both
You do
separately?
pay for both separately, but you do get the discount.
Thanks, that's all I got for now.
Okay, Harmony, while you got the mic, let's go ahead, and I'm just gonna, because what I want to do is hear just quickly, and I think that's what Radzi's looking for, just your initial take on all 3 of these: mortgage fees, port fees, and admin fees, whether you like them, you don't like them.
My screen was not doing me any favors. It kept jumping back and forth between things, so I was really not able to keep up with what he was saying. So I'll come back.
Okay, we'll get you at the end. So if you just look at the scenarios just to get a general idea. Perfect. George, you want to go next?
In the briefing that we had the other day, there was some correlation made between the daily rates and people not coming here as much. So my thought is, yeah, we need to well, the balancing that he's talking about, we would, we're way low on one end and way high on the other. We need to straighten that out. And I think a smaller increase for the daily rate, and maybe a bigger increase for the yearlies or monthlies. I like the rates that he's talking about, but I like the scenario 1 for part of it and scenario 3 for the other part.
Okay.
Question, can I have ask a question about that? Or you're talking about the mortgage rates there, not the port fee or anything else?
Just mortgage rates this time.
Okay, and you're talking about doing it this year or subsequent years?
If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Okay, cool.
And then what do you think, George, about the port fees or the admin fees?
I like the numbers that Ravid worked up. We need increases there. We talk about. Yeah, I like your idea about the rental cabin, but on the other hand, that's kind of pie in the sky. This is something that, particularly the commercial boats, where else are they going to go? They're going to bring people to Soldovia, and whatever the fee is, they're going to pay it. And they'll pass that on to the passengers. I don't see them losing, everybody expects rates to go up. I don't see them losing customers because they got to pay a few more dollars in the admin fee and the port fee.
Okay. Sounds good. Bobby, you want to go next, or?
Yeah, well, I definitely think we should increase our port fee, probably at least double it, since it hasn't been increased in 13 years, is my thought. And I think the admin fee sounds good to me. I'm not sure exactly how much we should charge for that. Probably Where are those numbers again, Radsey?
Right there, you're right there on that number 7. You're looking at it all right there. So you've got 3 scenarios on the admin fee, the 8, 9, and 11,000, and then the port fee. Yeah, it's right at the very top there. That's the total amount. Yeah.
The admin fee, what does that come out to dollar wise?
Well, that's the total revenue, and then there's the individual transaction fees listed on the other page.
Okay, well, never mind. Whatever. And yeah, increasing rates. I think we ought to at least get them balanced, you know, if we're low on some things, just like George said, and we're high on others, I think we need to at least balance them. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss as to why we lose so much money. But anyway, that's another thing. So that's all I've got.
Okay, so generally you're in agreement with this thought process and this strategy going, okay. Let's see, Jen or Vivian, who's next there?
Yep, I'm ready, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, kudos to you guys putting this together. I fully support what's been given to us tonight. I think it's a way to move forward. We've got a harbor that's been losing money. We need to do something about it. I'm totally in favor of the admin fee. It needs to cover what we're expending. So either I'm comfortable with scenario 2 or 3. In the port fee, that's something that definitely needs to change. And I would go with 2 or 3 on that. I don't think adding $3 on to the head would really make anybody blink twice. As far as the mortgage fee or the mortgage fees, looking at the daily rate, I don't know. I'm curious how much of difference it would make. I sit down at the harbor and I see people come in and they use our cleaning table. They never bother to go up, and the signs are there. They never go up and bother to pay for using the cleaning tables. I've watched people, they come in and they go. So whether or not we could encourage people to stay over, or if they're just out boating around and they're just cruising through, coming to Sildover a few hours, whatever. But I do agree that we need to balance out what charges we do have. So kudos to you guys for putting this together. I think it's a way forward. I'm definitely interested in moving forward with all 3 of the items. And I would either go scenario 2 or 3 easily. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. So again, Vivian's also looks like in agreement with the strategy in general here and has some specifics there. Okay, Jennifer.
My turn. So what is if somebody just comes in for the day and they don't spend the night, where is the break there where they get charged?
If they spend the night, they pay.
Should I know this? So if they come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5, it's free?
So how it's stated is it's 4 hours for daily use is free. It depends on when they come in. We're kind of lenient on that. But if they just come in to walk around town and to go get their kids ice cream, yeah, that is free.
Okay. Yeah, I find it hard to believe that the rate increase is the only reason that people weren't staying. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I feel like people that are coming in, they're coming in here already knowing that they're not going to stay. And I want to say, I doubt a lot of them did their research beforehand and said, oh no, it costs $20 extra to stay in Sildover, I'm not going to do it. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Not to say that I'm against lowering the daily or the nightly fee. I understand the rest of them need to go up. Obviously, there's inflation issues. It will be taken not well with our annual users that we're giving daily users a break and them the opposite. I don't really know how you smooth that over. Port fee, I'm definitely in support of raising it. I'd probably just stick with the $2 if it were up to me. Because that was such a hot button issue to begin with for so long. But yeah, it's time that it goes up to help pay for things. And the admin fee, I suppose, is a good thing. So, yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Jennifer. She's also in support. $2 on the port fee, the admin fee. I didn't catch which one, just in general, she was supportive of that. And then also the concerns about the mortgage of reducing the daily versus the annual on that. So, okay. Harmony, that brings us back to you. George, you had a question?
Yeah. Where's the Jackaloff Harbor fit in all this? Is it its own ball of wax, or is it part of this same scenario?
I would assume that it's going to be its own ball of wax based on the outcome of that separate discussion. So yeah, I wouldn't even want to tackle that one at the moment on anything past status quo.
Well, I was just curious, is it the Jackaloff Harbor budget is part of the harbor budget or not? Apparently not.
Well, I think it kind of is.
Okay.
So it's quasi, I don't recall off the top of my head. Which one of you wants to take that?
Well, where it goes is we've got the water taxis to deal with, and that's another source of revenue. I know they're the ones that are likely to say, hey, we're just going to land on the beach from now on. We could end up putting a whole bunch of money in that Jackaloff dock, even if it was a grant, and then have try to charge some fees to get our investment back. The only real good commercial users are Mako and his ilk, and they've already said they're not real interested in helping us.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think in the spirit of solving our long-term solution, I mean, maybe there's some of them that will just be completely adamantly opposed to a $1 or $2 port fee, depending on, raise, depending on where that goes. But again, in the spirit of trying to solve this and knowing that generally we need more revenue to fix all of our problems over here, hopefully they'll play ball. And I know when I go to Seward, it's $3 a pop. I get it. And the other 800,000 people that run through Seward on Kenai Fjords tours and all that, City of Seward, $3.50 a pop. That's what they get. And they get every penny of it.
Mr. Mayor, currently, aren't we only charging Makos if they come into the Seldovia Harbor? We're not charging them out there,
We're
right?
not charging them out there now, but we need to be looking at that in the future if we're going to make an investment in the Jackaloff Harbor. And right. The
Yeah, and
other
I
thing
think
is-
once we get the infrastructure out there straightened out, then obviously that whole scenario is going to change.
The other thing is the commercial passenger carriers have a source for this. I mean, they're not paying it. The daily users are paying it themselves, where the commercial passenger carriers are going to pass that fee on to their passengers. A private boat that comes in for the day or the night or two can't do that.
Right,
So
but
it's
he's not paying
different.
the port fee like we said. They're exempt from the port fee. So that's only for the commercial passenger vessels on that.
Exactly, which, and all I'm saying is that's the only place we have to go for revenue for that Jackaloff dock.
Okay. Harmony? We got about 10 minutes left here.
Sure. Obviously we need to seek other revenues, and this is really excellent information. I feel like it's never fun to make these decisions for the community, but I feel like scenario 2 is probably, we could easily do scenario 3 and we need to, but I think that scenario 1's still kind of a little bit shy, and probably scenario 2 would be my vote.
Okay. Thank you. And then I'll just chime in too. I think on the admin fee, I think, it's the difference between $8,000, $11. I think you split that and, end up in the middle there. that 9,600 for scenario 2. The port fee increase, I think going from $1 to $2 is not a big shocker to anyone. You know, I mean, we know $1 barely covers the administration of that fee. So I think a couple bucks is not unreasonable, and I'm not opposed to going to $3 if we're going to do it. I'm definitely not opposed to just tearing the Band-Aid off and going from 1 to 3. That's just me. On the slip fee increases, I too had the same comment that Jen had on that graph where it showed the decrease on overnight users when we had the 17% increase on the daily. I don't know if that's all a direct correlation to each other. There had to be some other factors in that, because there's no way when I travel, I could care less. I mean, when you're traveling, unless you're an ultimate penny pincher, I mean, then fine. But ultimately, I think 95% of the general population, if they're going to go do something, they want to go somewhere, they've already made up their mind. They've made provisions. They know, hey, we're going to go to Moldova. We'll sleep on the boat. We're going to stay the night. They're not going to care if they pay $26 or $29. They're just not. I mean, if we had a decrease in that, it would be small. I get it, to bring things back in alignment. I also get the concern of, showing a decrease there and then, go ahead and upping our annual mortgage. The annual mortgage, I could go to city. The annual mortgage, I think at some point here needs to go up. And I'm not saying all the way to the other harbors, but it needs to. We've known for years and years we've been under budget for our revenue on our annual fees. With that being said, I mean, this all comes down to strategy, right? It comes down to a strategy of figuring out a way to keep our harbor full, and there's that fine line of what you're charging people, versus supply and demand and latent capacity. If Homer's full and has a waiting list and we're full and have a waiting list, then people are going to be less picky about, if there's a bump, they're going to pay it. They want their boat. They know how one of them boats expensive, yada, yada. If you have no waiting list and your harbor's 50% full, well, then we probably can't be making too much of a bump on that. So Layla, you got your hand up on that.
We currently have 5 on the 42-foot wait list and 2 for 25.
Okay.
And how long do you think the 42-foot wait list is in terms of years?
6 years.
Okay. So we do have a little bit of a waiting list. Okay, so that's my 2 cents. I think in general, you guys got a pretty good for this short meeting. Is there anyone from the public, Heidi, that wants to get a word in? We've got a few minutes left here.
I'm not seeing any hands at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. Was there any other final closing questions, comments, or did staff have any additional questions or comments? Razzie, go ahead.
Thanks, everybody, for being here and discussing it. It's a conversation we needed to have.
So what's our next step in this process here then, going forward timeline wise?
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. It's a great question. It's more a matter of, does council feel like they want another work session on the harbor rates to go through this again? Because there's a lot of information in an hour. If not, if you feel comfortable, and it seems like the majority of folks were falling into scenario 2, I would say on average, there was support to see something for all 3. We could address the increases when we talk about the fee schedule and changing the fee schedule, which happens along with the budget in May.
Okay, so port fee and admin fee could be rolled into that discussion, which those seem the 2 easiest ones and probably the least lack of contention amongst the crew here. And then the mortgage rates, that one will be a little bit more probably discussion and thinking on strategy on that one. So we had do we have an automatic increase coming up starting already in July or no?
No.
This increase is the one that we've had that went into effect last
Last
year.
year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Council has not approved a rate increase automatically in your fee schedule.
Correct.
That is something that you could do this year. You could say, all right, we've rebalanced the rates. We feel comfortable with how our mortgage rates are looking. And so in order to take into account inflation, we'll add a condition that says that the rates automatically go up per the Anchorage CPI or something like that. Or
Just like we
three-
did with water and sewer. Same exact thing we did with water and sewer.
Right. I don't think it's not automatic either. Our-
Yes, yes, it is. It's supposed to be. We voted on that. Yes, we did that a while ago.
Okay, well, through the mayor, Councilmember Sweat, I don't think that's in our fee schedule for water and sewer, so it is something that we could add in there as well.
Okay, and the way I remember it, we'll have to go back and look at the meeting minutes, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we'd agreed that for a certain number of years, it would be an automatic tied to the CPI. And so it should be happening or should have happened.
Okay,
Yeah. And so then we need a positive, so then somewhere along the lines between either now, if we thought we were going to do something between now and July 1, we need a positive action on mortgage rates.
correct.
Okay. Okay. So we've got
So
three
it's
and a half months here, which is going to go relatively quick.
very quickly, and it sounds like, so we should have another work session at least on mortgage rates, and then it could be a chance for another council member to share other ideas too. Councilmember Kennedy mentioned incentives, so looking to see if there's other ideas for how we can look at restructuring rates. So we can get that on the schedule.
Okay, it might be a good idea, and maybe at that one, we kind of hone it in a little bit more based on tonight's discussion on instead of having 3 scenarios, maybe then we're down to a scenario that needs amendments, or 1 to 2 scenarios, mid-range versus high range, and then, the options under each one of those. I mean, I think the admin and the port fee, that will be easy to flesh out during our discussions. And then the mortgage is going to take a little bit more working through that. So.
Thank you, Mayor. And at that meeting too, because we have 5 minutes till our next meeting, that could be when we touch on harbor parking as well as
Because we didn't
the
get there.
small boat harbor capital projects. And I just wanted to draw council's attention to your laydown packet. Starting on page 8 in your laydown packet is data on harbor parking from June through September of last year. So you can see what kind of numbers we're looking at. The September 2021 presentation, when we first touched on this topic, is also included in the laydown packet. And then Homer's parking rates are included. And then the thing that I'm most focused on for the harbor starts on page 14. It's needed capital projects just for the Soldovia Small Boat Harbor. So this does not include Jackaloff. So you can see we're talking in the millions for float improvements, dredging, and then smaller projects are pedestal replacement, harbor master's office, painting, safety rings and cabinets, roof for the oil shed, water lines and floats. And then an excerpt is the harbor master's report for work that she would like to see accomplished too. So we can talk about the mortgage rates, incentives, and any other ideas council may have, in addition to parking and capital project needs for our next harbor work session.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we got about 3 minutes. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and adjourn this work session, give everyone time to take a quick break. And then we are going to start our special meeting here in about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. So this meeting's adjourned.